Hey there, this is Beth, your sweet urban living lady, and I am excited for another podcast where I get to introduce someone who is pretty amazing, helping people in the natural health field take back their health. Welcome, Marc. I'm so glad you're here with me today.
Thanks, Beth. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so let me just share a little bit about Marc. Dr. Marc Moonitz is a board-certified traditional naturopath and accomplished natural health educator whose clients span the globe, including the Plains communities. He's known for empowering others to integrate self-care practices and think critically when navigating health decisions. Marc's approach blends low-impact body and brain movement with practical strategies for whole person wellness. Dr. Marc holds a Bachelor of Science in Operations Management from DeVry University, and you have earned several certifications through Trinity School of Natural Health, including Certified Naturopathic Doctor, Certified Flower Essence Specialist, natural health professional, and health specialist. That's certified health specialist. Marc is also board certified by both the American Naturopathic Medical Certification Board and the American Association of Drugless Practitioners. Marc holds advanced credentials as a certified fitness nutrition specialist, brain thinking master, Thai natural healer, intuitive reader, and food and spirit practitioner, drawing from international education and cultural immersion. Dr. Marc brings depth, discernment, and refreshing perspective to natural health education and personalized care. So again, thank you so much for being here. I am so glad to have you with us. Now, you had a whole lot. You had a whole lot, a mouthful of things that designations and certifications and board certifications. So that's you've got your education under you. And you say you help people globally, which is pretty phenomenal.
Right.
So that means in other countries and things like that. Yeah.
Other countries, other continents, other time zones.
So I'm assuming you do that virtually.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. So, Marc, you and I were chatting just a little bit before the show. Both of us are Trinity graduates, and we've known each other for a while. And so what I learned just recently about your history, about you saying, hey, I know I'm not feeling good after being, and I want to be careful because I don't want to be blipped off the air, okay? But but getting that jab that is required, or we're told is required, you noticed you weren't feeling so well after that, and you started at the tender age of 13. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so, I grew up in Cincinnati. My parents were very concerned with the health of my older sibling who had asthma, and so he would go quite often for asthma shots, okay? And they just felt like, okay, well, every year we're going to send both our kids to the pediatrician and get the flu shot. And I noticed, starting probably about the age of 10 or 11, that I'd get the flu shot, and within a day or two, I was sick, presumably with the flu. And by the time I reached 13, I was like, this is getting kind of old. I don't enjoy going to get, the annual flu shot, then knowing I'm going to be sick. So I decided not to get the flu shot. Well, that year, I was the only one in the family that didn't get the flu. Everybody else who got the flu shot got the flu. And I got to thinking, well, cause and effect without getting real technical or analytical about it. I'm just common sense to me. It's like, hey, I feel really great. And I ended up being the one taking care of my parents and my brother that year, right, while they had the flu. Right? This is different, right?
Yeah.
And so then kind of fast forward to in my early 20s when I served in the Navy. And in basic training, what happens? Well, they're giving everybody various shots because they don't know where in the world you're going to end up. And so they have a whole, regimen of different shots. And so you're sharing common living quarters with 79 other people. And within 24 hours of all of us getting shots in both arms, all 80 of us came down with various symptomology, that was consistent with having been exposed to whatever chemicals they injected us with. And I'm like, this is nuts. And I'm like, never again.
Yeah.
And that's when I quickly realized what Navy means, which is just never again volunteer yourself. Right? It's like, yeah, this is a nice little science experiment, but you live, you learn. And of course, how I got into the Navy is a totally different story. But it was through those experiences of the vaccines and how my body responded. I said, this just isn't for me. There's got to be a better approach to it. And I had, always looked at, um, a more natural approach with and received much confusion, as in
Mhm.
my youth.
Yeah, gotcha. As I was reading your bio, I'm like, you've gone to DeVry.
Hmm.
Now, you also mentioned that you started medical school, but you were in the Navy. So,
Right. How
how
about
did
that'll work out?
someone who's in the Navy go into DeVry, which is like technology and medical, end up in the natural health field?
Okay, so
So,
when I was in high school, um, the the TV drama Quincy Medical Examiner was airing
oh
at that
yeah, I
time,
loved
and I
Quincy.
just thought that
Yep.
Quincy being a forensic pathologist was kind of cool, and that's like, okay, I'll do that. Well, at my high school, they had a vocational program in medical laboratory assisting, so I spent my junior and senior years learning about laboratory medicine. In fact, was working at Cincinnati's General Hospital, which is now called University Hospital. And I did phlebotomy,
Mhm.
and then I ended up working in hematology and chemistry labs while I was there. So, I got to see a lot of things that, most people before they go to college to go study medicine never, get exposed to, if you will. Um,
Yeah.
and so then I was in my freshman year at the University of Cincinnati pre-med major, and I went to a caduceus club meeting. And caduceus is just a medical club, right? And one
Okay.
time they had medical students from the University of Cincinnati College of Medicine, along with a couple of professors there. And, they had open forum question and answer. And I can remember when, everybody else had kind of asked their questions, I just kind of sheepishly raised my hand and said, yeah, I'm curious, how much time in the 4-year curriculum of med school do you focus on nutrition? And it was as
Yeah.
if I had looked at them and said, hey, your baby's the ugliest baby I've ever seen, based upon their
Oh.
reactions. I
Yeah.
kid you not. And finally, one of the med students said about 45 minutes. I said, wait a minute, 40, you talking 45 minutes, per week, per semester? What is he? He says, no, 45 minutes out of the entire 4-year curriculum. And so I quickly looked at the professors
Wow.
for confirmation. So this is 1980 to give you to set the time
Yeah.
frame, right? In 1980, I learned that, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I had always, just intuitively been more focused on preventive maintenance or preventative medicine.
Because of your
Right.
experience.
Even though I had the laboratory medicine background, right? I was
Yeah.
as I was spending time at the hospital, I got to know the hospital pathologist, introduced me to the county coroner. I got to go in and watch some autopsies being performed. I mean, hey, if that's what you want to do for a living,
That's really
yeah,
cool.
yeah, it's like, and there was the like in scouting, they had the Scouting Explorers program. So I
Uh-huh.
actually got to witness some surgeries at the Veterans Hospital in Cincinnati as well. To say, well, if you're going to
Wow.
get into this, you might as well go, experience it and find out, is this how you want to spend the next, you know, however many number of years in your vocation practicing that craft.
Right.
Um, and anyhow, that led me to um, conclude that no, this wasn't the path of medicine that I wanted to pursue any longer. Um,
Mm-hmm.
And so I withdrew from University of Cincinnati, is in pre-med, not knowing what I
Yeah.
wanted to do. I pursued another interest in aviation, flying, and that's how I ended up in the Navy. So I served
Okay.
6 years in naval aviation, yeah, which is kind of cool,
Yes.
totally different, you know, nice break from the health thing. But even then, as I look back, I was recognizing I was experiencing health issues even in the Navy, and learned a lot about aviation physiology, what pressurization does to the body, being at altitude, so on and
Mm.
so forth. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the connection. Was the Navy for me ended up just serving as an escape for about 6 years from
Mm-hmm.
the whole healthcare paradigm while I tried to figure it out.
Yeah. A lot of times we go through things and we think, and I know we're talking about natural health and what, helping people with their health, but it's like, it's always fascinating to me how somehow along the way we think we're, taking a
Mm,
detour and going away from what we're supposed to be doing. And we end up, actually, it just adds a layer of understanding, because I had that experience where I ended up teaching physical science, high school physical science.
Right.
And that was not what I necessarily, that was not my forte. I was like, maybe English, maybe drama, the not physical science, maybe life science. And I was like, but it was like God just opened that door for me. And I learned so much. I mean, I had taken that in high school and all that, but it was like, when you take it at a high, when you have to teach something,
Mm-hmm.
you have to learn it to be able to teach it. And it was like, it really reinforced. And then when I take it and I come and I'm putting it together with my journey in natural health, it was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Chemistry here, physics there. It started to make sense of how the body works and why certain things happen. And so that's what happened with you too, where you're saying, I went this way, but it actually added a layer and a depth for
Right.
you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So what did you do after you got out of the Navy? Just
Mm-hmm.
what happened then? You know, did you have it all figured out? I'm like, I know what to do now.
No, not at all. I struggled to kind of find my way when I got out of the Navy.
Yeah.
Lots of different, life things happen, and that led me to um, apply for admission to DeVry Institute of Technology in Phoenix, and they had a program in
Hmm.
operations management. And of course, being from
Yeah.
Cincinnati at the time was a strong manufacturing center, and manufacturing was
Hmm.
also another interest of mine. I thought, okay, great, I'll go study this, and that'll be fine and dandy. And
Hmm.
so, at that point, I was ready to pursue a college degree and give the commitment to study and learn and all that kind of thing. Um, and so, I learned a lot, not just about operations, but about human relations, because I had
Yeah.
a part-time job delivering flowers in the Valley of the Sun, Phoenix, Arizona. And you kind of think about that, and it's like the one thing I remember most about that was one lady that I got to deliver flowers on her 102nd, 103rd, 104th birthdays. All
Wow.
right, and so that was like another little. Well, wait a minute now. People can live to be that age, and I would ask her. I said, "Well, what was your secret?" And she said, "Don't chase the men. Let them chase you." And I'm like, "Alrighty then." Writing
not
notes.
not exactly the words of wisdom you
No,
expect.
not at all. I'm thinking like, well, avoid this or avoid that or do this or do that,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So, but anyway, I just, little things like that you kind of remember. And I think back to, my time in Phoenix was some of the most enjoyable in my life. And I think back on the health aspect, well, I had almost daily exposure to the sun, so the sunlight, and
Yeah.
what a difference that makes to
Yes.
our health, right, as a catalyst.
Yes.
Um,
Right.
yeah, and just uh, really focusing in on goals and achievements, and
Yeah.
just learning to accept things that are within your span of control, and not to stress out over the things that you can't control.
Yeah,
So
that's something I definitely have to remind myself of
sure, sure,
sometimes on a daily basis.
right, right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
So
So you went to DeVry.
mhm.
You enjoyed the Phoenix, and the being in the sun. And then did you go back home to Ohio
No,
and get a job?
no.
No.
I got a job in Silicon Valley working for a computer hardware company, and without mentioning any names, their computers appear in the movie Jurassic Park.
Okay.
So there's a hint. But anyhow, I went to work
There you
out in
go.
Silicon Valley. We're talking 1994 through 1995 timeframe. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And in my last semester of school at DeVry, I met my wife, and she was Canadian from Calgary, and I ended up moving to Calgary. And it was easier with NAFTA at the time, with my background, to go to Canada rather than have her try to relocate to the States. So that's how that happened.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
I was using my operations management background. I worked as a plant manager for a couple of years, and then I got into the IT industry as a software consultant for
Mm-hmm.
these. big enterprise resource planning systems where you're getting all the manufacturing, logistical operations to talk financially. And so I was traveling all across North America as a software
Mm-hmm.
consultant, implementing, tier one, tier two level software. So that
Okay.
got me exposed to, you know, additional cultures as well in Canada, and I even went over
Mm-hmm.
to the United Kingdom to teach for a couple of weeks because our education department didn't have anybody with a manufacturing background who could teach. So they're like, "Oh, great, we'll take the
Wow.
consultant. Away you go."
Th-
So it's kind of neat, you
That
know.
is that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um,
I was just going to add that
Go ahead.
the reason I bring all that up is lots of travel, so you can, I've spent more time on Air Canada than I did in an
Mm-hmm.
automobile, and that just kind of led me to, well, there was one evening flight. I was flying back from Montreal to Calgary, and I just recognized how unwell I felt, and I got to the point where I
Ah,
was like, you know what, I'm sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. This is nuts.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I took some time off from work and I went to see a naturopathic doctor in Calgary who was trained um, in India. And so I remember
Mm-hmm.
walking in there, dropped a couple $100 for an appointment. He did a live blood cell analysis. I walked out of there with
Mm-hmm.
some paperwork on what to eat, what not to eat, a bag full of supplements. And I'm walking down the street and it suddenly hit me. It's like, wait a minute. I just dropped a couple $100 and he told me the same thing I learned in kindergarten: eat right, exercise daily, and take your vitamins.
But sometimes we forget what we learned in
Kindergarten.
kindergarten
Yeah,
and we have to be reminded again.
right, right.
Yes.
You know,
And take naps. I learned
take that.
sleep. Take naps.
Well, and that was the other thing.
Okay.
You mentioned the naps, and
Yeah.
it's just the side note is, I could fall asleep, and I can still do it to this day. I can fall asleep sitting in an aircraft, seat,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
haven't even pulled away from the gate.
Yeah. Wow.
It's just, you kind of
Is
get
that
to
a
this.
good thing or
I don't know. I get in there and I'm just comfortable. I guess,
is
again,
it the
from,
rumble of the engines?
yeah, just knowing that sound, right? You just, I mean,
Yeah.
goodness, I spent
Yeah.
6 years flying in the Navy, so it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just, it's a
Yeah,
comfort.
I'm sure that's yeah, because my husband, oh, it's so funny.
Yeah,
He was a paratrooper, so he jumped out of airplanes instead of, landing in them. But um, that's the kind of sound that he falls asleep to as well. It's just one of those. He says it's very soothing to him. That rumble. So okay,
absolutely.
naps are important. Eating right is important. Playing is important. Getting enough sleep is all of those things we learned in kindergarten.
Right,
Okay, so you're not feeling good. You got this help from, and it dawns on you.
right.
I just paid good money
Hmm.
for something that I already kind of knew.
Yep.
So where did you go from there? Did you take the herbs? Did you change your diet?
Well,
What did you
yeah,
do?
I actually implemented what the suggestions were from the naturopath. So I started. He said, run for 5 minutes a day until it doesn't hurt. Well, took about 2 weeks. And he said,
Okay.
when it doesn't hurt, then bump it up by 5 minute increments. He says, when you get to 20 minutes, just leave it at 20 minutes. So it took
Okay.
me about a month and a half to get to the 20-minute plateau. And so every
Uh huh.
morning I'd run. Now the nice thing about living in Calgary in the wintertime is it snows, so I'm not going to go outdoors and it's minus 40. So thank goodness for indoor
No.
gyms and the treadmills, right? So you just have
Yeah.
to, you
Yeah.
just have to get creative on how you're going to get your exercise in. And I avoided like white flour, white sugar, all these things that were on this
Right.
list, right? Cleaned up
Right.
what my food choices were, um, and then of course took supplements that provided minerals and vitamins that I was missing. And so
Right.
that combination was a good, strong, winning combination. I instantly felt better, and that got me to pull my head out of the sand, if you will, about what I was doing. And I
Mm-hmm.
started saying, "This, what is it I want to do?" And about that time, my parents' health started to deteriorate, so I ended up moving back to the states, and so provided
Mm-hmm.
that safety net for my parents. And I was actually back in Cincinnati when 9/11 happened. So it gives you, a little bit
Oh,
of the timeline advancing to,
right.
so I was with them. Yeah. And then ultimately that led me to say, okay, I'm doing all this, health care for my parents. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
it's time to go get some credentials.
Ah, there we
And that's
go.
what ultimately led me. I went to Trinity, but before Trinity, I went to
Mm-hmm.
the Institute of Integrative Nutrition and took their health coaching
Mm-hmm.
program. And so that was a start,
Okay.
right? I found
That was a
learning about
good, yeah,
nutrition. Yeah,
getting your toes wet,
yeah,
right? Which you had an awareness of, so probably it was just reinforcing those things that you knew.
right,
Because that was one of those things where, when you said you asked the question at that um, meeting you went to,
right,
well, how much of nutrition is taught? And I can remember even as a teenager, because I grew up in the South, and we cook our
right,
vegetables to death, and we like fried and battered and all that stuff down here. And my dad would say to me, because I would sit down and I'm like, can't we have a salad? Can't we have something fresh? Can we? And my parents had a garden, so it wasn't like we didn't have any,
right,
fresh fruits and vegetables. That's not it. It was just like, I was just like, there was something even then as a teenager. I'm just going, there's something that I'm missing that
right,
I'm not being served,
right,
and you were aware of that when you asked that question of, how does nutrition factor in? So I love how the clues are there all along. And
right.
then, I'm sorry about your parents. That's always tough to deal with. And taking care of parents as they go through health decline can be very hard. So were you still, because you had work, you were traveling, you were working, were you still working in the technology field
Yes,
when you moved back?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. In
So
fact,
when did you finally, go ahead.
when did I finally make the change?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was when
I'm like, when did you jump ship completely?
that would have been about 2008.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got laid off from a corporate job in the information technology sector as they were,
Uh-huh.
uh, right sizing themselves.
Right.
They laid off about 1,300 of us, I think it was, yeah, all on
Wow.
a Friday. That was nice. Anyhow,
Of course.
so now while you're trying to figure things out, came back to the whole natural health thing, and that's what led me to IIN. And then short
Hmm.
after that, working with my parents, taking care of them. They were some of my best teachers. And then somebody
Hmm.
said, well, why don't you go ahead and take your health coaching to the next level and become a naturopath? And so I started looking around for what was going to work with my lifestyle because I didn't want to go back and,
Hmm.
plant my butt in a seat for 4 or 5 years necessarily. I was looking to
Right.
fast track and learn enough so that I could be effective and helpful.
Hmm.
Right? Yeah.
And you did more than that, because you've gone on to get several, like we said at the beginning, several different designations
Right.
and third party board certification from outside boards to show that you have attained a certain standard of understanding in this field. So
Right.
that's really good. So okay, so you did all that, helped your parents. When did you start actually practicing? And I want to
Mm.
get to, because you have a lot of fascinating things that you do, but you also use RBTI,
Right.
which I'll let you explain. But how did that start coming about? And how did that impact your life?
Oh my goodness. When I was, this was about 2012, when I went to IIN and took their health coaching program, I was just
Mm-hmm.
implementing, things that I learned there with my immediate family members. So that's really when I started actively practicing, if you will. Okay,
Yeah.
just with nutrition, looking at the foods and oh well, we learned this about this and digestion and whatever, right? Raw food diets,
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of things, right? The eat right for your blood type. Well, let's see what that's like, right? Just all
Right.
these different dietary theories, only to come to the conclusion that well, you know what? We're in a state of constant change. So what works today may not work tomorrow for the same person. And we just need to be open
Exactly.
to we're constantly evolving. Um, and so that's where I'd say about 2012 started actively practicing. And then when I was going to Trinity in 2016, I can remember as I was studying, getting ready for the practical applications that I took in August of 2016. One
Mm-hmm.
of the neighbor's dogs got attacked by a pit bull.
Oh
Uh,
no.
and so, I'm hearing all this screaming, we're outdoors, right? And, the funny thing was I had a Bach Flower remedy kit. So I'm thinking,
Yeah.
sounds like a crisis to me. I'll grab crisis blend,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yes.
just that simple thing, right? That I
Mm-hmm.
went and there's the dog with an open wound, and I just poured some of the crisis blend on the wound. I gave it to the human mom, right? Said, here, just take
Yeah.
this, and
Yep.
within
Yep.
seconds, both of them started calming down, and I'm like, wow,
Yep.
that's impressive,
Yep.
right? So I
Mm-hmm.
just took things on faith of what I was learning and said, okay, let's apply that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
Mm-hmm.
kind of cool when one of my best referrals was the dog. When
Yes.
when the dog would
Yes.
see me,
Yeah.
the dog would just drop everything and come running to me, and it was like I didn't ask for this. It's
Yeah.
like, wow,
Wow.
thank you, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
that's when I started just offering support to friends and family initially.
That's
Yeah.
cool. I had somewhat similar. I didn't help the dog, but I helped the child.
Mm,
One evening, right before the shop was supposed to close. I mean, it was probably 5 or 10 minutes before we were supposed to close.
right.
One of our regular customers came in, and they had just come from the emergency room. Her daughter had been bitten by a dog, and I'm like, okay, mom, can I give her some Bach Flower rescue remedy?
Right.
And she's like, sure. And so I did. I gave her a few drops directly in her mouth, just get it in there. And I gave it to mom too. I'm like, Mom, you need some too. And we talked and we went around the store. What can help? What we should we do? I actually think I gifted her a bottle of Bach Rescue. I said, now, when you get home, give this to Dad before
Sure.
you tell him what happened.
Right. Right. Right.
Go ahead and give it to him, right? But as we walked around,
Right.
you could feel because it's more than just an injury. There was a fear element. It was a traumatic experience
Sure.
for the dog and for this young lady. She was a teenage, so not tiny child, but still just this intensity all around her. And as we walked around, you could tell, it was starting to diminish. And I looked at her finally about 10, 15 minutes later, and I said, how you doing? You doing okay? She's like, yeah, I'm actually better. I'm like, great. So in about another 20 minutes, let's give you another dose. Just, like I said, just gave her the bottle. But it's so incredible because dogs and kids,
Mm,
they know.
exactly.
They're not after, they're not doing this, I don't know if it's really working or not. They know whether it's working.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
For those who are listening, it's Bach, BACH. It's Rescue Remedy, and you can find it at your local herb store. I may even put a link in so you can just click it and buy it on Amazon. But I'm telling you, it is one of the best things you can have for shock, grief, trauma, anything like that. So your neighbors are starting to say, hey, this guy is really helping,
Right.
and you're starting to get more in practice doing more,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
Okay, so take me on. What
Okay.
happened
Okay.
next?
So your second part of your question was about RBTI. Right.
Yes,
Okay.
because that's one of your specialties, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the areas that you specialize in.
Yeah.
You specialize in several
Yeah.
areas,
Yeah.
but the RBTI seems to answer a lot of questions. I don't want to limit it, but especially what you said about the nutrition unique to the person.
Right. So so RBTI is just an acronym for the Reams Biological Theory of Ionization.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Kerry Reams is the Reams in that name. Okay. And he
Mm-hmm.
came up with this with his biological theory of ionization in the 1930s. So we're not that far. We're from being 100 years since he started with this. Okay.
Right.
So if we go back to late 1999, okay, remember I was still uh, working in the IT industry, and my
Mm-hmm.
travels caused me to meet one of Dr. Carrie Reams's granddaughters socially.
Oh.
Okay, and actually, it ends up she is Betty's daughter. Okay, so
Oh.
I
Okay.
met Betty's daughter,
Cool.
not knowing anything about Reams or what he'd done, anything like that.
Right.
And I was still working as a software consultant, flying back and forth all
Mm-hmm.
across North America. And anyhow, long story short, when I first time I entered her home, there was a picture of Carrie Reams behind her, that was prominently displayed in her home, and the picture looked a little bit like Harlan Sanders of Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I said to her, I just commented, I said, "So what's up with the picture of the Colonel?" She goes, "The Colonel." With a kind of a strange look at this. She turned around and looked, and she busted up laughing. She says, "That's not the Colonel, that's my
Yeah.
granddaddy." And that's how started the conversation about who her grandfather was and what he did, and how I initially learned. And this was 1999 when I first found out about RBTI, but I wasn't ready to receive all that message. I looked at a couple of
Right.
websites, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot here, right? And
Yeah.
then it wasn't until really when I was going through Trinity and we started on the
Mm-hmm.
PH course that they mentioned Dr. Kerry
Mm-hmm.
Reams. I'm like, whoa. And so I, reached out to Betty. I said, hey, did you know that this school's teaching, your dad's work and so on and so forth. And that's what led to it. So just for those that are wondering, what is this all about? The easiest way I can think of it is it's nothing more than body chemistry balancing. It's a system. Okay. And
Right.
to me, it provides a dashboard of your health, just like you look at the dashboard in your automobile to know, okay, well, do I need air in the tires? Does the car need oil? Do I need transmission fluid? Am I running low on fuel? How fast am I going? We get that kind of feedback with, the RBTI analysis. So I've got a
Right.
one-page sheet if any of your viewers want, like a basic introduction and have a quick overview without
Mm-hmm.
getting all mumble jumbled.
Yeah,
It's a nice
send me
sheet.
the link and we'll put it in. Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes so that they can just click on that. We'll have your information for them to get in touch with you too, of
Sure.
course. But okay, so yeah, so that's really, yeah, that's just
Right.
those just moments where something comes together, that you're just going, wow, it was just orchestrated.
Right.
Um, so, okay, one of the thoughts while you were explaining the his biological theory of ionization, he got that, because I've studied it when I taught at
Sure.
Trinity. One of the classes that I taught in the CHHP program when it came around was the RBTI. Now, my specialty is iridology, and iridology and RBTI just go together so well. I don't know if you know that,
Yep.
but it's like there are so many times when I'm looking at the eye and I'll go, well, if these signs are present, they're more likely to have, and you and I, when I say this, a split pH
Mm-hmm.
or a double acid or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And almost every time, if I run the numbers, they're just very, very rarely would it not be true. And the only reason it would not be true is because they were eating the way they should be eating.
Right.
And so the potential signs in the eye were not being experienced in the body, which is what iridology. So anyway, I want to get back to, because I want, like, one of the things that fascinated me
Mm-hmm.
when I started learning about Dr. Reams was that he was actually in agriculture, and
Right.
it was through his agriculture. And when you said something about, and I don't know if you use these words, but the terrain of the body, you said something about looking at that dashboard and knowing, and it's
Right.
like, and that's what he actually did in
Mm-hmm.
the, wasn't it a Orange Grove or
Yes.
something like
Yep.
that?
Yep. Yeah. He's
Yeah.
yeah. He grew up and he's from Orlando, Florida.
Okay.
And in fact, it's interesting.
And
In
so,
one of the first classes, when he's introducing himself, he says, I was born in Orlando, Florida, in order to be close to my mother. Now,
okay.
that's just was his sense of humor, right? It's
Yes.
like
Yeah.
you have to stop and think, but his whole point
I
was
had to stop and think. I'm
right.
like, okay, yeah.
That was his style. He was working with people to get them to take the pause from it, think about what's going on, and focus in and understand the cause and effect relationships. Well, that's
Right.
what appealed most to me about his work, because back to my business degree, I learned a whole
Mm-hmm.
management philosophy that's focused on cause and effect relationships and how to resolve
Right.
conflicts. So if you think about it,
Okay.
if we're out of
Yeah.
balance from our health, our body's in a conflict.
Uh-huh. Right. Okay, so what from an RBTI,
Right.
and you don't have to be limited to
Sure.
RBTI because like I said, you are have specialties in several fields, but in your opinion, what would cause that dashboard
Mm-hmm.
to be out
Sure.
that we are ignoring because you're saying cause and
Mm-hmm.
effect. It's kind of like, you're driving that car down the
Mm-hmm.
road and your check engine light comes on and you can do a couple of things. You
Mm-hmm.
can put a piece of black tape over it so you don't see it anymore, or you can go get the engine checked and see what's causing the issues, the cause and effect kind of thing.
Right.
So sometimes I feel like as people, as humans, we don't pay attention to the warning,
Mm-hmm.
there's something going on our dashboard,
Right.
you know. So just kind of help me understand that. How does that really help you see what would be going on, and what are some of the things that we're ignoring?
Well, at the root of everything, what we're truly ignoring is soil management, meaning that we're
Okay, what do you
by
mean by
soil
that?
management
Yeah.
meaning that we as a I'll just say all Earth citizens, and there's all who take care of the land, regardless of where you're located on planet Earth. We're not
Right.
doing it. We're not doing our job to effectively steward the soil, and we're supplying the soil
Mm,
with what it needs. We're a
yes.
lot. Most people at this stage understand that the soil is nutritionally depleted compared to what it was like in the 60s, 70s, or go back even to when the country was founded in the 1700s. The soil is a whole lot different,
Right.
and of course, there's various causes and reasons for that. Um, and so when Dr. Reams first started out with his theory, it was focused on agriculture,
Mm-hmm.
and he recognized that, well, you know what, if I can do this in the soil, in the ground, and we can grow healthier uh, fruits and vegetables, we can also apply this to
Right.
humans. So it's like, yeah, he understood soil management, terrain management in the soil, and then brought it over to the human side. So yeah,
Hmm.
at a root, what's causing the imbalances? It's going to be the soil. If something's missing in the
Wow.
soil, it's not going to be in the food that you eat. So that's one very basic thing. So it's like anybody that's
Yeah.
listening, if you want to address things long term, start with the soil.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one reason why I work with the
Okay.
plain communities, right?
Okay.
I mean, think about it. They're still the, predominantly agriculturally focused. There's not every plain person is a farmer, but there's a huge
Right.
lot of them that are, and
Yeah.
they, especially here in Pennsylvania, have taken a very
Mm-hmm.
active interest in working with the soil and starting to implement the RBTI agriculture concepts. And that's
Really?
what's exciting, and keeps me, engaged with them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it keeps
Yes.
growing, and they're
Yeah.
starting to see things, but that's a different thing.
Right.
So back though to the RBTI.
Mm-hmm.
When Reams was doing his research, he concluded that all we needed to look at is urine and saliva when it comes to body fluids. He had tested all body fluids, blood, everything else, and he
Mm-hmm.
found redundancy. But when you're looking at these numbers, right, the numbers are
Mm-hmm.
painting a picture. They're telling a story of what's going on with the person's health. So, um, for example, at the very basic thing, whenever a person's um, numbers begin to move away from what's considered the perfect values, the first nutritional deficiency that exists is a vitamin C deficiency. So it
Mm.
doesn't matter which numbers have changed, which directions they've changed. The first thing that's going is a vitamin C deficiency. And you stop to say, well, wait a minute, how does that work? Well, the best example I can give
Yeah.
is think about a brick house, or a brick, any brick building. And you see bricks,
Right.
and what holds the bricks together?
The
The
mortar.
mortar. Okay, so think of the mortar as that's your vitamin C. That's the glue or the
Okay.
cement that holds all the cells in the body together, with the exception of blood cells. Okay,
Okay.
so
Mm-hmm.
whenever there's a loss of the mortar, there's a loss of vitamin C. Well,
Mm-hmm.
when we think about, well, what's the most common way that we lose vitamin C? And the funny thing is not funny, but just funny in terms of you don't stop thinking that is whenever we bathe, we open up the pores of the skin, and what
Mm-hmm.
escapes through the pores of our skin? Electrical energy or heat energy?
I would say, oh gosh, Mark, you're getting me. I would say heat energy, but oh
Exactly.
my gosh.
It's heat energy, and
Yeah.
the first nutrient that's escaping as heat energy is vitamin C.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that. That is news to me.
So
Okay,
so
that's cool.
so so
See, even I can learn something.
so that's why Reem said that after you bathe and you dry off, then apply a vitamin C enriched like lotion to the skin so that you stop the loss of vitamin C and you replace that which you lost due to the bathing process.
Oh wow. Okay,
Okay?
that's really that's news to me. I've missed that somewhere in my
Well, sure.
studies.
And then and
That's cool. Okay.
and then if I may, just to finish that off, okay, so we talked about vitamin C loss, okay? So
Yeah.
when you're looking at a set of numbers, if they're not the perfect set of
Uh-huh.
numbers, the first thing you know, this person's losing vitamin C. Okay? Now,
Wow.
which organ in the body contains the greatest amount of soft muscle tissue? I'll give you a clue. It's located above the navel on both sides of the body.
Yeah.
The lungs.
Yeah.
Okay? So if we lose vitamin C in the lungs, have you ever heard of something called emphysema or COPD?
Right?
Okay, so that is often a symptom that's consistent with the loss of vitamin C.
Right?
Okay, so
Uh-huh.
back to the bricks. So each brick,
Yeah.
the outer part of the brick, that cell membrane, if you will, is vitamin
Uh-huh.
A.
Mm-hmm.
So when we lose vitamin C, we're also losing vitamin A.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
what's causing that vitamin A to push up against the vitamin C? What's causing the bricks, right, to compress over time and cause that mortar
Mm-hmm.
to decay? Okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
if you think about the tissue cells, inside the tissue cells are several minerals. Okay,
Yeah.
at the
Right?
center of it is nitrogen. Reams refer to nitrogen as being the sun, but we have
Right.
this excitable mineral called calcium.
Yes.
So part of RBTI teachings is the mineral that we need more by weight and volume than any other mineral is calcium's. And that's why
Right.
that calcium's pushing up against the cell membrane, is pushing up against the vitamin A, which then pushes against other cells or that vitamin C. So when we're bathing, it's
Uh-huh.
very easy. The pores open up, all that vitamin C, vitamin A, calcium start leaving the
Uh-huh.
body.
Oh wow.
There's your magic.
And we shower I mean, most
Most people shower
people,
once every
Americans, they
24
shower
hours.
every
Yeah.
day. Yeah. Yeah.
Or when you're doing the
And
dishes.
so, yeah, okay, that's a good point too,
Okay.
because I do dishes just about every day too. Um, uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, so I was reading, I came across something just recently where it was like scurvy is returning.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
there are more cases of, and they may not have called it scurvy at first. They were, and I didn't pause long enough to remember the name or the source or anything like that. I just remembered noting, and I'm going, that's really interesting, but I'm not surprised.
Right. And another
You know?
another interesting name disease that's really nothing more than a vitamin C deficiency is fibromyalgia.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
now
wow.
fibro is more than just vitamin C deficiency. There's a loss of selenium and vitamin E and a few other things, right? But point being
Mm-hmm.
is that everything at a root starts with a loss of vitamin C. And so some people think, oh, well, if all I do is pop vitamin C pills, I'll be healthier. That's not the case, right? You have to look at,
No.
the energy level. What's the pH levels? Um,
Right.
but the simple thing is if you think you need vitamin C, which yes, we all need vitamin C, eat onion soup.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Reams learned that from the
Onion
Native
soup.
Americans. Yeah, onion soup
Wow.
has the onions are an abundant source of vitamin C that don't impact the body chemistry. Cause
Ah.
okay, but it gives you that. It's giving you
So
the nutrient.
onion soup, not just raw onions, not just, onions on a burger.
Those are all good as well, but the onion soup is the best form. Okay, because it's pre-digested when it's cooked. So it's easier on the
Ah,
liver.
okay.
It's easier on the liver to
Yes.
digest and metabolize, extract the energy out of the foods. That's another thing. Reams taught is that we've probably heard, many people have probably heard that you are what you eat. Well, that's not exactly true. When we look at it through the lens of RBTI, what we learn is that
Mm-hmm.
we live off of the energy that's being
Mm-hmm.
extracted from the foods that we eat. So if
Right.
there's no energy left in
Right.
the food, you've wasted your time. It's kind of like
Right.
when a kid swallows a coin. There's no energy in the coin, but that
Right.
actually leads to a net loss of energy. Why? Because the body had to process it, had to digest it, metabolize it, move it through the body.
Right. And that's the thing is, I mean, how many people are eating canned foods these
Yeah,
days? I mean, we go to canned, not me, but we go to canned food. I mean, I'm not saying I never have any canned foods at all, but I'm just saying we go to canned foods because of the convenience.
right.
But when I taught the nutrition portion at Trinity, one of the things that I talked about is canned foods is just little dead soldiers. That's what I call them.
Mm,
They're just little dead
mm,
soldiers. In this can, they have very little nutritional value, if any, really in there at all. Because, and then, like you said, it's the body's having to
mm,
work
mm,
harder
mm.
to get rid of something that has no nutritional value. So we're not really gaining
Yeah, we're
anything
actually losing energy.
by eating them.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're losing energy.
right,
And then we wonder why we're so tired,
right.
you know?
Exactly. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say that canned food is absolutely the worst, but it was the
Right.
last source of food that Reams would recommend. Because
Yeah.
let's face it, there's various reasons why canned food would be useful.
Oh, yes.
So I don't
Exactly.
want the viewers to
Yeah.
think that we're anti canned food.
No, 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 absolutely. That's what I'm saying. I do still eat some, and I do have, some stores of, things.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but, for what we're talking about today, if you're listening and you're going, okay, wait a minute, I'm losing vitamin C,
Hmm.
not having vitamin C, one of the main things I'm dealing with is fibromyalgia. Or, and that was a question I thought about earlier was because you've been kind of dabbling in this as early as like the 1980s when you were doing medical,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And you were aware. And have you noticed over time
Hmm.
um, the chronic issues, the chronic illnesses
Sure.
becoming worse,
Sure.
more prolific,
Sure.
and
Sure.
yeah.
The
What's your take on that?
diabetes comes to mind, and I use the phrase
Mm-hmm.
diabetes, meaning diabetes and obesity both have increased in this country since the
Exactly.
'60s when I
Yeah.
was born, or as I like to say, when I was hatched.
Right.
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 Um, and it's interesting. Without mentioning names, another naturopath came out with a book and said the single greatest invention that changed the health direction in this country was the invention of electricity. And you think about,
Ah.
why would you say that? Well, because when electricity was invented, then the kitchen appliances came out that were powered with electricity, and we got away from cooking our foods over an open fire and then taking the ashes from the fire and putting them back
Mhm.
into the soil. And there's
Right.
minerals in those ashes. We got away from that as
Right.
a country.
Right. So a lot of things have taken away
Mm.
from and caused issues with soil.
Yes.
We haven't even named some of the things that we do to the crops that get into the soil that cause issues as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. This is kind of like, wow. So, what can we do? It sounds like, man,
Sure. How do we keep it simple?
This is heavy. What am I supposed to do? I don't, So first, call Mark or get his link, make an appointment because there's always hope.
Mm,
It's not hopeless. We can
no.
take back our health. We can live a healthy life. We can find foods
Mm,
that have more nutrition now. We can do things like simple things like eat onion soup. Oh my goodness, that can help.
sure.
So, yeah, so what are some of the things that you're going, okay, we do have hope. How do you work with this with your clients?
Right. So what I endeavor to do is just keep things straightforward and simple and accept them where they're at. So,
Okay.
like for instance, this is actually another descendant of Carrie Reams. Okay, I'm not going to mention this
Mhm.
person's name, but they're
Okay.
one of my clients, and they
Mhm.
reached out to me just yesterday, um, and as I was going through just questions, we discovered that they're drinking coffee, and they didn't realize the
Okay.
impact that drinking coffee can have on the kidneys and lower back pain. So
Mm.
the we talked about, well, maybe I should switch to decaffeinated. Well, no, what you want to do is it's you need to wean yourself off of that. But just something that simple that we don't necessarily think about, the connection that the
Mhm.
caffeine and coffee can have on the kidneys that we
Mhm.
experience as lower back pain. And then
Mhm.
and then that this individual was quite surprised when I said, "Yeah, so what you want to do is get some watermelon. Eat the watermelon because that will reduce the inflammation and the stress on the kidneys." Right? So
Right.
there are very simple things when you understand that you can
Mhm.
do. What's the simple approach to from RBTI? Dr. Reams always promoted eat a wide variety of foods.
Right.
Okay, and some people think, well, that means I have to have a lot of different foods. Well, yes, that's true, but here's a quick example. How many different varieties of an apple can you name, right, in 15 seconds? I bet you could probably come up maybe with one a second. All right, okay,
Mhm.
well, there's a variety just within that one fruit known as an apple, right?
Mhm.
Think about it. Go to the grocery
Okay,
store.
so
Yeah,
you can eat different. So that's a variety. It doesn't have to be like I have to buy everything in the grocery store. I just need to. Okay.
right. And say you go to the grocery store and they've got, say, 15 different varieties of apples. Okay, get two of each,
Mhm.
meaning that you have one a
Okay.
day. There's a month's supply of apples.
Okay.
Okay, so that's just a very simple example of what he meant by eat a wide variety.
And there really is a wide variety in the produce section. That is definitely one of the things that with working with my clients when we start talking about, changing diet and not eating this, a lot of times their question is, well, what do I eat? And I'm like, well, I would even there were a few times we would have classes at my shop where we would take those who were part of it. We'd go to the grocery store and we'd look and just go, okay, here are all these different options, and especially in the produce section, look at all these different options and the different things you can do with them and kind of think outside the box that you don't have to do the same thing with you can, you can do different things. Like I'm thinking coleslaw, cabbage.
Sure,
You can make a healthy coleslaw, or you can do a stir fry. You can do different things with it.
right.
You know.
And when in doubt, you want to make sure that the food is cooked somewhat. And what I mean by that is,
Okay.
like, don't sit down and
Mhm.
have a raw salad.
Okay.
Okay, most people their liver isn't strong enough to be able to digest it.
Yeah.
And so the way you'll know is you eat the salad and suddenly you're experiencing gastric distress within an hour after you eat or
Right.
sooner.
But salads are so healthy, Mark. We all know that.
So take your salad and put it into a blender, right?
Uh
Or
huh.
one of those, without mentioning brand names,
Right.
one of those devices that, high speed,
Yeah.
and make yourself a
Uh huh.
smoothie. Now you've got a liquid salad.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Blend. Yeah, that's what we recommend in iridology all the time is what we call blended salads.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
There
it.
you go. So now you
Yeah.
can blend it quickly, right?
Yeah. That was another thing where, again, I would have people come in. Oh my goodness, I went to this other person and they told me to,
Yeah.
I need to start eating healthy. And I'm like, so let me guess. you started eating broccoli and, you know, things like that,
Yeah.
right? You know, fresh salads. And they're like, yeah, how did you know? And I'm like, yeah, because when you start doing that, you get gas and
Right.
bloating and, you know, and if you're already having problems with constipation, you get more constipated.
Right. Right. Yeah. So
Wow.
it's due to the strength of the liver that we highly recommend making sure that the foods are pre-digested, meaning they're cooked somewhat.
Yeah. 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 So, you know, cooked somewhat doesn't mean cooked to death like what, you know, I grew up with. We let our green beans sit and cook all day long,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's cooked to death, and so there's not much. Now there may be life in the juice. I'm not saying that. I'm like it's not. I don't mean to be like everything's
No.
bad. That's not what I mean. I'm just saying, you know, if you're throwing away the liquid,
Mm.
kind of like what you were saying, the onion soup, it's like it's
Oh.
better and it's there in the liquid, right? Um. All right. So if there was one thing that you're saying, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I recommend this
Mm.
because now I'm sitting here. I'm gonna have to make sure my lotion has vitamin C in it because I don't think
Oh.
I was paying attention to that.
Right.
If there's one thing that you would recommend to those who are watching or listening, what would that one thing be?
It is to explore your emotional health, meaning
Okay, we haven't even
what about
talked
that?
about that. Yeah, what do you mean?
If you're harboring, let's say, anger or hatred or
Hmm.
dislike or animosity or bitterness or any of those lower vibrational emotions, you want to get rid of that
Yeah.
stuff. And that's where the Bach Flowers, for me at least, comes in as, a staple of my
Yeah.
practice. And
Hmm.
Dr. Reams, quite often would share with folks that anger or hatred was the
Hmm.
finest seed that cancer has ever known. And he got a
Oh,
reputation for helping people with various forms of cancer. Not saying that RBTI is a cure for cancer, just you can help support
no.
people with various types of cancer with that protocol, right? Um,
Hmm.
and so I've seen this in the numbers. I'll look at people's numbers, especially when they have plateaued, meaning they're not moving, they're not improving very much. I'll start saying, "Tell me what's going on in your life, stress wise. What are you stressed about?" And inevitably,
Hmm.
it leads back to that type of emotion. Once we address that via the Bach flowers and or some type of emotional release like emotion code, and there's others out there, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Then suddenly I see the improvement in the numbers.
Mm.
It's all energy,
It
and so the
is.
numbers in RBTI is just reflecting what's the body chemistry, what's the energy level like at that point
Right.
in time. So
Right.
it's like, what's the one thing? Focus on that, on your emotional health, and if you need assistance, I recommend you find a cat or a dog. You know,
Now
they're
that,
going.
and I know what you mean by that, but tell me why you mean that. Tell us why you say that.
Well, primarily because they're non-judgmental, and they'll just accept you
Yeah.
unconditionally as things are,
Yeah.
and you don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to defend why you feel the way you feel to a dog or a cat,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And
Right.
and then with their
Yep.
silliness, they become a nice distraction, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they are good listeners.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Yeah.
They are very good listeners. I remember as a kid going out and sitting
Yeah. Well,
arm around my dog, just pouring out my heart, whatever it was, as a
right.
kid. They're very good
Oh, yeah.
listeners. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And it is, I appreciate that because it's like we do need to realize that even if we're eating the very
For
best,
sure.
if you could have someone, and I have had people come to me and they're like, doing all the right things. And I mean, not just like you said, okay, I'm eating a salad, but I'm bloated. I'm talking about,
Hmm.
they're
Hmm.
eating, they're doing,
Right.
but they're dealing with some kind of emotional trauma
Hmm.
or stress or something like that. And they're still having health issues.
Yeah.
How is that even possible
Right. And
if I'm doing everything else right?
and I'm going to say disconnect from society and go spend time in
Yeah,
nature. In other words, turn off the
yeah,
TV, right? Get off of social media.
yeah,
Don't
yeah,
answer your phone. and go hang out in nature for a
Right.
while and
Yeah.
listen to the sounds of nature and observe, like
Yeah.
right this time of year, at least, sorry, us Yankees are enjoying fall foliage,
Yes.
right?
We are a little
You get a
bit.
little bit, right, with what is it, what I call
Yeah.
it, the oh, what's that tree, the I'll turn it, at the debutante ball, right? It's the flower that's associated with like the debutante balls. What is that called? Oh shoot, I'll think of it when we're done. Anyhow,
I'm like, I'm not
I think
sure.
I think the tree starts with the letter M, and I can't remember which one it was. Not magnolia, but there's
Okay.
something like that. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. But the point being that um, when we watch the changes and we watch the animal behavior, all right, within
Uh-huh.
nature, it has a very profound calming effect. And
Yes.
at least for me, it helps me like just get reconnected to, well, this is a heck of a lot simpler lifestyle, much less stress.
Yeah.
And then you start looking at, well, what are we doing, and what should I be doing? And yeah, I can say I've become a much happier person, a lot less stressful with the time I'm spending in nature, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
grateful to the playing communities for
Mm-hmm.
engaging and affording that opportunity for me. It's like you probably notice I spend a
Yes.
lot less time on Facebook than I did years ago.
Yes.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why, one of the reasons
Yeah.
why.
And that is so good. That is one of those things. This has been a couple of years ago that I went outside because
Oh,
I have dogs,
that's what it is.
and
It's the
at that time I
dogwood.
had
It's the dogwood tree. Sorry, I know
the
it's the
dogwood.
dogwood I was
Oh,
thinking of.
okay.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. Glad you remembered that because I'm going, I don't remember that.
Yeah, dogwood.
Um, because it's the white rose that I thought, and that's not a tree. So I was like, I don't remember a tree.
Mm,
Okay, but
yeah,
anyway, so yeah, I was because I'm on the computer a lot with what I do, and
mm-hmm,
it's like, and that can be that energy right there can be very detrimental.
mm-hmm,
And so I remember going outside. I have at that time I had a little Pomeranian, and I still have my Chiweenie, and they're about the same size. And so they would go out and they just walk around the grass. And then, of course, if the sun is out and the day is warm, there's my Pomeranian just
right,
rolling in the grass, just going, and of course, you and I know how good grounding is. And
mm,
I typically would go outside and just, when they did that, I would take my shoes off and ground. And, I thought I was so stressed that day. I'm like, you know what? That's a good idea. And I just went and I laid on the ground,
sure,
with my back and shoulders, my whole body. And I just remember the tension just draining from my neck and
sure,
shoulders. And so there really is something about just that earth
mm-hmm.
connection that makes a huge difference, that nature connection that makes a huge difference. So that's really cool. Mark, I feel like we have just barely
Scratch the surface. Yeah,
touched the tip of the iceberg with everything that we could talk about.
sure,
Because what I understand about RBTI, and I'm not as fluent in it as you are. Like I said, I have taught it
right,
because that was part of the coursework that I taught. My specialty is iridology, but I understand it enough to go, this is really good stuff. And then of course I'm all about, I work with Bach flowers, emotions, and things like that too, and do things like that too. And I just know that there's just so much more that we have not even tapped into. But you're able to help people
mm-hmm,
look at their dashboard
right,
like real time
right,
because of the testing the urine and the saliva. You're able to help them with emotions. You give them like common sense answers. When you say, I'm not saying that you don't recommend supplements, but
oh, I
that's
definitely,
one of the things
mm-hmm,
I love is being able to
mm-hmm,
say, hey, let's do this with food.
mm-hmm,
And when you say eat onion soup or go have some watermelon
mm,
or, things like that, that's just very practical.
right,
That sounds like that's something that's doable,
right, and that's what people are
you
looking
know?
for is, for example, I'm not expecting people to implement radical changes immediately, but I've had a few people, for
Yeah.
example, to say, "Well, you know what? I'm not willing to give up my sweet tooth addiction."
Okay.
Okay, So let's not focus on that food, but I'm making a mental note. Okay, we've got an emotional addiction that we want to come back and address emotionally
Yeah.
later, right?
Yep.
And I just allow
Yep.
them that freedom, right? And that's a lesson I learned from my
Mm-hmm.
parents, by the way, is to just accept them
Mm-hmm.
and support their journey. It's their journey, not
Mm-hmm.
mine. And that was an important lesson
Right.
I had to learn. I kept wanting to impose my will on people in the
Yeah.
beginning, okay?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, but anyhow, so I just allow people to get used to, these numbers don't lie. These numbers are telling a
Right.
story, and I'll come back with various
Mm-hmm.
questions and like, well, how did you know that? Like a
Yeah.
simple, well, you haven't been drinking your water, you're dehydrated. Well, how can you tell? Well,
Yeah.
right here, here's how I can
Yeah.
tell. And like, oh,
Right.
I'm like, so you're only fooling yourself if you're trying to, say, well, these numbers mean something that they don't mean. And that's one thing I
Mm.
appreciate about it is it gives you a quantitative foundation to
Right.
begin to ask
Right.
additional questions and find out. Sometimes it's people are just hiding out from something that they just don't want to discuss, right? That they've been holding on to for years, and something helps you uncover that. Yeah,
And that's one of those things where as naturopathic practitioners, both you and I both know, like you said, it's that person's journey.
right.
We are just the guide along the way. We're the ones who are just saying, here's the information that your body is giving
Mm-hmm.
us. This is what it means, and here are some ways to overcome, correct, and bring into balance so that you feel better, do better, think better, live better, all of those things that we want. We want to sleep better, we want to
Right,
feel better.
right.
And so when we
Oh,
do that, when you're the guide, when you're just saying, here's the suggestion, because I've had, to do that too, where I'm like, this is my recommendation. I recommend you do blah, 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 blah. And, the client doesn't necessarily do it. I'm not going to be like, you didn't do this, here's the ruler, beating you over the
right,
head or anything like
right.
that. It's just, but when you come down to it, there are times when I've just had to say, well, have you done this that
Mm-hmm.
I suggested yet? If you're still struggling with whatever it is, and they're like, well, no. And I'm like, well, until that is addressed, you might still have an issue with that. But it's done with grace.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of those things is because we are all in that place. And a lot of times, that because when you mentioned the sweet tooth, the person doesn't want to give up their sweet tooth. That was me for a long time.
Sure,
I was that person.
sure.
I was the person who was like, I won't. And if you look at my eyes, I have the orange signs, the orange pigment in my eyes that say, yeah, you need to support your pancreas. And so it was
Mm.
my eyes and my RBTI numbers would tell on me,
Sure.
and would say, but if I wasn't willing to let it go,
Right,
you know, that was an emotional. See, that's that emotional component
right,
that you were talking about.
right.
And so addressing the emotion now, it's like if I do eat something sweet, it's like I can feel it.
Sure.
Like my mouth is like, whoa, I don't. And I went to my mother-in-law. This has been a few years back, but she had out some kind of candy, a Christmas candy or something. I don't even know why I did it because I don't eat the sweets
Mm-hmm.
anymore. But I picked up something off of it was like a Reese's,
Mm-hmm.
and I popped that thing in my mouth. It was a little one, not big. And I popped that thing in my mouth, and I was like, "Whoa!" At the sugar. So once you start making those adjustments and your body
Mm-hmm.
becomes adjusted and you do eat something like the
Mm-hmm.
refined flour or the refined sugar and you do eat it, you're like your body's going, what did you just do to me?
Right,
um and you don't want it. I mean, I just want to say you don't necessarily want it because you're just going, I don't feel good.
right.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. A couple of things as you were talking that I had thoughts was like from a set of RBTI numbers, I can usually pick up that somebody might be experiencing insomnia.
Hmm.
So there's food choices, timing of when you eat, Bach flower remedies that can support that, right? Discusses about looking at five element theory. I use five element
Mm-hmm.
theory and nine star key components in how I go about practicing that connects in with RBTI, that I can see those things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and so I don't want folks to think that, oh, he's just RBTI, because I'm not just RBTI. It's just
No,
that
and I
that gives
wanted
it,
to be sure that
yeah,
we mentioned
that
that.
that that
Yeah.
that the RBTI gives you a good place to start, and you can you know
Hmm.
it's like they say, it can serve the practitioner as a great tool to, if you're working
Right.
with people that tend to not be truthful with themselves, right? It forces
Yes.
them to learn, I
Yeah.
need to be truthful with
Yeah.
myself because this guy can see what's going
Yes.
on in these numbers somehow. Yeah. And
Right.
that's that sometimes that's what they need.
Mark, that's funny. I've experienced
Yeah.
that because again, I do the iridology assessment, which the iris tells us our
Right.
predispositions to. It does not
Right.
diagnose. We are not diagnosing at all in any way, shape, or form, but it tells us the predispositions. And then when I sit there with the client and they're telling me I have this issue, that issue, blah, 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 and I'm like, okay, then you're having this, and I'll start saying this or that,
Right.
and they're like, oh no, no, that's fine, and I'm like, let's run the RBTI numbers, and
Right.
I'm like, there they are, two sets of assessment tools, and they're both telling me the same thing,
Right.
and it's not that we're trying to be like, gotcha.
Right.
That's not what
No.
I mean by that. It's just, in today's society, we love what you call, that quantitative. We want to be able to qualify and quantify results. And that's, when we're talking about
Mm.
emotions, now I'm not saying you can't do it at all because, like,
Right.
there are frequencies that we know that the frequencies, but we don't tend to put people up to machines and go, well, let's see what your frequency, you can do that.
Right.
There are scans out there,
Right.
but, just here are our assessments,
Right.
and they're telling us. And when you mentioned, if your liver's not strong enough to handle a raw salad,
Mm-hmm.
you know and that's me. I'm like, I don't eat raw salads. I eat most of my vegetable. I'm not saying I never ever eat anything raw. I'm just saying most of my vegetables are lightly cooked.
Sure.
That's how I eat most of my vegetables.
Right.
But we know that the emotion that is connected with the liver is anger.
Right.
And so if you're having, a weak liver, not strong enough liver, we start to investigate what's making you angry. When someone's craving the sugar,
Mm-hmm.
it's what did you lose that was sweet to you in life? Where are
Mm-hmm.
you missing something sweet in your life? That's what we're looking for, because those emotional components really play into the physical health,
Right.
you know.
Right. And you mentioned about the whole frequency, and that's just it. Is what frequencies are we feeding our brain that the brain is
Hmm.
processing, and then the brain takes that, and then the brain is sending out, you know, different frequencies to the liver to let the liver know what it needs to do. And so if there's a
Exactly.
disruption with what we're feeding the brain, guess what? There absolutely was going to be a disruption and an
Right.
imbalance with the liver. Absolutely. Um,
Right.
Sorry, just you mentioned too about herbs, and I know I haven't talked about that, but Dr. Reins did
Yeah.
incorporate herbs in his RBTI protocol. So,
Hmm.
for example,
Hmm.
chaparral is a common herb that we
Hmm.
will use in RBTI protocol, right? So just so folks recognize, it's not all foods. It's a nice blend of what nature provides that's in
Right.
RBTI. Yeah.
Yeah. Because sometimes we do need that supplemental support. We do, and it comes, some of that comes back to our terrain, our
Mm,
body, our soil
mm,
needs immediate help and boosting, as well as the soil that our
right.
foods need help as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been really good, Mark. I've really
Well,
enjoyed this conversation with you.
thank you.
It's getting to know your history a little bit more. Um, this has been really great. Thank you so much. Okay, I
Okay.
know I asked one thing, but I'm going to go. All right. As we wrap up, are there any final thoughts that you have that you would want to share?
Um, yeah. Don't allow yourself to give up ownership for your health.
Ooh,
In other words, empower
that's a
yourself.
good one.
Accept ownership,
Mm-hmm.
right, for being a steward of your
Mm-hmm.
temple, of your body, right? And
Right.
then don't become fearful of doing your own journey to where you learn, and don't be afraid of what news you might hear.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just kind of again get back to embracing nature, because
Yeah.
I took the other approach, right, where I avoided nature for
Yeah.
many years and learned a lot, right.
Right.
Um, but again, there's like for example, you might wonder why am I dressed casually today, right, with a nice little
Yeah.
T-shirt. Well,
Yeah.
I have a teenage daughter who had a very severe form of scoliosis, and so she
Mm.
finally had surgery after 3 years of trying all non-surgical, right, methodology.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so she
Mm-hmm.
ended up with a spinal fusion. So she's in her second week of post-surgical recovery here at home. So somebody is with
Oh,
her at all times. So I'm just
yeah,
casual. So
absolutely.
yeah, I'm taking care of a client since we can't call them patients. But my client is my
Right.
daughter right now, my main client,
Absolutely.
right? And but so
Uh-huh.
we're doing RBTI as well, making sure she's getting things right. But there's a time and a place for all
Mhm.
forms of medicine, is my point. And it doesn't
Exactly.
replace the tool I can look at with things. And of course, from iridology and sclerology, right? Things that you can, when you're looking at
Mm-hmm.
eyes, you can tell about teenagers, or not just teenagers, but you can tell about females that females experience that males don't. Yeah, I don't. You remember that one where Lewis taught us about looking at the sclera? You tell if somebody is pregnant, and then you can tell what the gender of the baby is.
Oh,
Yeah. So I
right.
can remember years ago, as I was studying and going through that, my daughter says, "What are you doing?" And I explained it to her. I said, "So there you go." So I said, you can't lie to daddy." She wasn't real thrilled to learn that the
No.
eyes can tell things like that. Now, not that that's ever been an issue with her, but just to share that I got her engaged. And guess what she was doing with some of her friends when they would come to her and they were having a scare? She'd start looking at their eyes.
Oh, wow.
It was
Wow.
neat and kind of funny at the same time to me. They said, "You go, girl," right? But you know, I mean, it just goes back to another tool that we have, right, to do a quick assessment
Mm-hmm.
and say, yeah, you might want to
Mm-hmm.
take additional action.
Mm-hmm.
Iridology, I would say, out of everything that I've learned, iridology is the one thing that I just haven't um, focused on, and that's okay because I
Mm-hmm.
know I can reach out to
Yeah,
colleagues like
good.
you and say, okay, Beth, here's what's going on. What does this mean? This is what I remember. What my understanding is. Do me a favor and
Mm-hmm.
help me, take it to the next level. And that's
Right.
great. And I do a
Right.
lot of what I want to say cross referencing.
Well, we can't do it all.
No,
I mean, that's one of those, and we do tend to have things that we're drawn to.
yeah,
There's certain things, and when we're drawn to whatever that is, it's like that seems to be where we
sure,
really
hmm,
excel. So, yeah.
yeah. Well, and then the
Well,
final thing is engage in laughter. Learn to laugh.
oh yeah.
Laughter therapy is one of the best therapies that I often will recommend to folks. Right? Yeah.
Yes. Yes, that is so good. Laughter, it does good like a medicine.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you, Mark, again so much for being here with me today. This has
Thank
been
you, Beth.
so cool. I've learned a lot. I'm not saying I know it
Yeah.
all, but I was I did learn something today, so that's really cool. And listeners, if y'all have learned anything, please, and you're going, hey, this is somebody I need to talk to, please reach out to Mark. We're going to have his contact information in the show notes so that you can reach out to him. And like we said at the very beginning, he works with people globally, virtually. You can set up a time to meet with him virtually. You don't have to live in Pennsylvania, but if you do, you could maybe no,
Yeah.
maybe see him there. But either way, reach out to Mark. This has been really good. And also, do me another favor: if you're watching these and you're enjoying this, you're getting things out of it. Would you please share, subscribe, click that like button, rate and review if you're listening on podcast, because we want to get these messages, and how people like Mark are helping people overcome health issues, get back their health, live a good, healthy life. And so, really appreciate that. And again, Mark, thank you so much for joining me. It's been great.
Thanks, Beth. Appreciate it.